2018 was a transformational year for the Elmira Poor People's Campaign. We have been working to fight poverty and stop the all-out war on the poor. This would be an honorable goal under normal circumstances, but the current political atmosphere has made this a critical moment in time. So we will respond by building a movement. We are a new and unsettling force designed to face the false moral narrative that is threatening to remove human decency from the face of the earth. We are changing the narrative by changing the narrator. We are continuing the fight started in the 1960s when Martin Luther King Jr. called out the triplets of evil: militarism, poverty, and systemic racism. And we've added the ecological devastation that is ruining Mother Earth, our only home. We started back in May with the 40 Days of Action. The Poor People's Campaign launched a set of coordinated actions that stretched across the entire country. A strong contingent from Elmira and these surrounding areas joined 1,300 New Yorkers who participated in direct civil action in Albany for 6 weeks. Through personal stories, songs, and creative action, we told the truth about the structural violence of poverty, racism, environmental destruction, and militarism that is hurting our communities. Week 1, we said somebody is hurting our people, with a focus on children, women, and people with disabilities in poverty. We learned that women are 35% more likely to fall into poverty than men. Week 2, we took on systemic racism and poverty while we talked about voting rights, immigration, xenophobia, Islamophobia, and the mistreatment of indigenous communities. We were reminded that when voting makes a difference, those in power won't let you do it. This was very visible this year. Week 3 saw the topic of the war economy, militarism, and the proliferation of gun violence, where we said that the endless spending on war is violence, that our country shouldn't be profiting off the killing of black, brown, and poor people all around the world, and that violence is coming home to roost, and we say no. Week 4 cried for the right to health and a healthy planet. We talked about ecological devastation and the critical need for health care. Each of these issues interlock and work together to oppress people. Sometimes it's a matter of pulling back our focus to see from a new perspective. When we pulled back our own lens here in Elmira, one of the many intersections we saw were at the corners of ecological devastation and healthcare. Elmira explored our strong history with the Industrial Revolution and the link to the toxic sites in our city, one of which happens to be the location of the Seoul High School serving Elmira. We have spent more than 20 years questioning the consequences that brought this to our community. On June 10th, we partnered with our local chapter of national partners Mothers Out Front, mobilizing for a livable climate, to bring the community together to discuss our concerns and options as we prepared for a public meeting with the Departments of Health and Environmental Conservation. It was a great opportunity to make connections and hear the stories of the people in our community that were impacted by this evil. With such a great success, we decided to continue with the legacy started by Dr. King, and in July we introduced Teaching Tuesdays in Elmira with a potluck dinner and discussion about the history of the Poor People's Campaign, where its goals and objectives stand today, and its dedication to bringing together communities in order to learn and grow together. We are building a movement, not simply a moment. Our program continues. We got together and we learned about intersectionality, the history of immigration abuse in the United States, the barriers poverty presents in terms of education, the intersections of labor and employment, and the critical importance of voter registration and voting rights. September 8th, we partnered again with Mothers Out Front to participate in coordinated actions across the country with the Rise for Climate, Jobs, and Justice. We kayaked down the Chemung River and we were met by a crowd at the Rise and Meet the Flotilla. Next, we joined several partners for the Rally for Climate Chemung County. It was a great day with lots of passionate activism. September also saw the Southern Tier Interfaith Coalition inviting speakers from the Poor People's Campaign to explore the intersection of poverty and racism at their annual meeting. October brought the People's Assembly to Stony Point, where 110 activists and leaders from all over the state talked about how to move forward. From that is growing new regional committees all over the state. In our area, we are working to create the Eastern Southern Tier region. We'll have a lot more information about that coming up real soon. In the meantime, Teaching Tuesdays have been continuing in Elmira. We joined Casa Trinity and the program of peace to discuss the pain and suffering associated with substance abuse in Elmira. We partnered with Catholic Charities to talk about domestic violence. We had a painful, true story told by a local resident who lived with an abusive father, and a young lady who shared what it was like to leave an abusive boyfriend. We partnered with Fathers Helping Fathers to talk about the importance of men's health and their role in families and communities. We had a powerful night with Cornell Cooperative Extension and energy justice lawyer Lori Wheelock from the Public Utility Law Project. We talked about energy efficiency and the resources available to those in poverty. December saw another whirlwind of activity as the Elmira Poor People's Campaign recognized the 70th anniversary of the United Nations signing of the Human Rights Declaration. On December 10th, we joined with our local Peace Vigil as a part of the coordinated actions with the American Friends Service Committee and the National Poor People's Campaign as a moral call for migrant justice. As 22 of us huddled in the frigid cold of upstate New York, our partners were standing shoulder to shoulder and in some cases getting arrested for saying that America can and should do better. The next night we had Teaching Tuesday yet again, this time partnering with Corning's Finding Voice. Staying in step with the theme of human rights, we invited Bobby Black from Binghamton to talk about the fact that the home of the free incarcerates more people than any other country in the world. He also taught us about the intersection of mass incarceration and ecological devastation. It was incredible. We also spoke with Janet Flores, a grassroots organizer who has lived experience in her family with regards to the current abuses of the immigration law. The shell game she described that they were playing with human beings was heart-wrenching. It was even more shocking to learn the comparisons of the mass incarceration machine that Bobby introduced us to and this immigration machine. We have learned yet again that silence is violence. Whew! When I look at it this way, it sure seems like it's been quite a year. But have no fear, the best is yet to come, and like we said, we are not creating just one moment, we are building a movement. Teaching Tuesdays will continue with a range of hard-hitting topics. In recognition of the National Human Trafficking Awareness Month, we're going to partner again with Catholic Charities to talk about this plague in the Southern Tier. We will also have a guest speaker from Potter's Hands, a human trafficking safe house right here in our own area. Catholic Charities and the Homeless Shelter will join us on the 22nd of January to discuss homelessness, an issue that has had a dramatic impact in Elmira, particularly highlighted in the news. February is Black History Month, and it's time for us to call the evil out by its name: racism. We will explore the history of racism and activism in Elmira. We will talk about the future, what we can do to fight racism moving forward. February will also see us participating in coordinated actions around New York State targeting the New York Health Act and the critical importance of treating universal health care as a right. In the past, we have voiced our support of others telling their stories. The viewing party we held in solidarity with the citizens of Harrisburg, Pennsylvania in the days after the Tree of Life shootings. But coming soon, Elmira will have its own opportunity to host our own Poor People's Hearing. We will give amplification to the impacted to tell their own stories, to own their own narrative. We are hoping to have this hearing coming out around April. Stay tuned for more details. We will continue to strive toward the goals of the Poor People's Campaign through base building, organizing, building relationships with other organizations working toward these same ends, identifying these evils and calling them out by name, engaging in direct action, developing political education resources that will help us to develop skills and knowledge through study and the exchange of ideas, and contributing to the development and implementation of the goals and objectives of the New York State Poor People's Campaign. With so much uncertainty, fear, and anxiety, it can feel easier to just give up sometimes. But remember that we can move forward together and not one step back. In other words, stay tuned and get involved. The Poor People's Campaign. If Dr. King said that our lives begin to end the day we become silent about the things that matter, it is time to get loud. Thank you for joining me for this video, and please consider joining the new and unsettling force that is the Poor People's Campaign.